I appreciate the human ones about the relationships and the dynamics between people that impact a lot of this. The stuff
Yeah.
that's so fuzzy sometimes, it gets ignored or disregarded when you're looking at the executive level view of the health of the company. I love any conversation where it's what part of our humanity do we ignore for the sake of having everything organized in a perfect grid, and how that ends up
Okay.
causing long-term like harm. Like that's those to me are fascinating conversations. The dissonance between our desire for order and our natural human like messiness.
In my early 30s, I had the opportunity to start mentoring and kind of coaching young men recovering from drug and alcohol addiction. And through a series of events, that eventually led me to last job as COO at Ethos Treatment, which was a phenomenal drug and alcohol, and now actually drug and alcohol and mental health outpatient provider here in the Philadelphia region. And that's where we implemented EOS there, and just had tremendous success. I do want to make sure I say EOS was a big part of that success, but it would be naive for me to not say that the critical part to the success of that company is the quality of the clinicians and the therapeutic services that they're offering, right? So it's not just this system that I'm kind of working with now; it's the parts that are within that system. But that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today. As long as I can remember, I take actual pleasure in like making things work better, like finding efficiencies, right? Even if it's like finding a shortcut driving my son to school. We've actually figured out on our drive, I have a 5-year-old, and so we have about a 15 to 25-minute commute, right? And in figuring out that we can actually go a little bit longer mileage wise, and it saves us a few minutes, right? And like that just kind of excites me, in finding those efficiencies. And that's just been a part of me my whole life. Throughout my career, I've worked at small companies where I've experienced grave inefficiencies because of how small they are. But while working at these small companies, we've had clients who were Fortune 100 companies and marveled at the inefficiencies they have on the opposite end of the scale, right? You can see how people can be very inefficient because they only have 3 people doing this. And we can see how people can be very inefficient because they have 30 people doing this, when we probably need 8 people, right? And so I worked for a technology company in my late 20s, kind of on the beginning end of doing a lot of like mobile phone capture and GPS tracking for field service workers. And that was an example. I had a major garbage company, waste disposal company as a client. And it was cool to see them being able to adopt some of this new stuff, but the slow pace it took for them to get approval, the 14 layers of people. It's like, listen, we got a good idea. We got a proof of concept. Let's do this, right? And you actually have the resources to probably roll this out properly, right? Versus a smaller company. Like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but who has time to do that? We're just trying to keep the lights on, So seeing that at different companies, and then when I first learned about EOS, working at a local SaaS technology company here in Philadelphia, that's where I was first introduced to it. A great company by the name of Clutch. Realize that that's kind of at the heart of what this does, right? It's finding that efficiency, which a lot of times is, I think a lot of times we think we have to, the more complicated things are, like the better they are. And I don't agree with that, right? Like it's, the simpler you can make something, typically the better it is. Complex does not necessarily mean better.
So you've adopted this framework, this EOS, which is what? Entrepreneurial Operating System, correct? Okay.
Correct.
And you're supporting companies that you find have do they meet some sort of threshold when you meet with them and you discuss and you understand your problems? Is there some sort of threshold where you say, okay, this will help you? Or is it more of, regardless of the circumstances, this would be beneficial for you?
Yeah, so I would say it's somewhere in the middle. There's kind of 6 main components to the EOS model that we help companies strengthen, right? And typically what will happen is during our introductions, when we're getting to know each other and learning, me learning about the company and them learning about EOS, typically within the first 90 minutes, it becomes pretty glaring where that pain really is, right? So there's not one particular test of like, well, because of this, then we need it. It's more, okay, how's this going, right? And I can tell you one of the biggest things we work around with is people. I would probably say the vast majority of clients we end up working with, solving their people issues, which there's a variety of those, tends to really be kind of the first thing. I think what's interesting to talk to you guys about, because it's something I've always been geared towards, the component that we work with that is normally the most often overlooked, though, is around process and documenting process. And for us, that means about, getting the most important stuff that you do. I don't care what it is you do, right? Whether if you develop software, if you dig ditches, right? But whatever it is you do, getting the most important stuff you do done the right and best way every time.